down, up, here. That's probably better, I think. Hello. Last video, I said genre, but what I really mean is something that turned into a style from a trend. And also in the last video, I was a little bit harsh. There's always another side of the coin, and I feel like my points are just a little bit stupid, and you know, there's always another argument to the other side, so I feel like maybe I should cover that. I wanted the same result as what happened with Facebook. Here are a few examples where, so I don't know if the clients actually look at Facebook's example and was like, yo, I want this one. I think it's just overall because a lot of people were doing it, so they just capitalized on it and became a trend. To be honest, I'm looking at this giant ant one and it's very different, even though it's got simplistic design and everything. It's actually animated super complicatedly. And they had the ability to do so because of all the simple shapes that the design uses. It was so saturated, everyone started doing it. Here's another one from Oppo. Not that. This one was also done by Tendril. It's probably because Oppo saw the Microsoft thing and then went to Tendril, the same studio, and said, hey, we like your style, can you please do something for us as well? If you look at Tendril's website, you can actually see that Microsoft came to them to do a lot of stuff. Yeah, sure, it's similar, but it's because it's the same fucking studio. Most of the style was actually attributed to Nando Costa, who was distinguished designer at Microsoft at the time. Microsoft owns the style. No one else can really copy it. Well, if they did, people would tell that it is Microsoft's like original style. So yeah, I really can't say anything about that. Trends turning into styles, right? What do I mean by that? Well, let me give you an example. When I first started, and I didn't really know about motion design at the time, I saw this video. It's a little title sequence. His account handle was JR Canist, and I really didn't know much about him, honestly. They're using simple shapes in order to convey emotion and action and everything, and I thought it was so cool how they did that. This is what really made me fall in love with motion design. I think shapes started becoming a trend. You can tell here, this is something for Strava, and you can show the speed and the motion and the sports and statistics as well. There were a lot of stats at the time. Oddfellows, and this is Project Phi, and this takes me back. I used this as reference for a lot of my pitches at the time because back then it was still super popular. And you can tell it's like simple shapes. You can show a lot of different things using this design language. Years gone by, and shapes weren't really the most popular thing anymore. Funnily enough, it was actually characters that took over, but shapes still persisted. In fact, there was a little studio called Ordinary Folk, and they started doing some really fun projects. And you can tell the shapes are so dynamic, and they're so expressive, and they're amazing, it's lovely, so many colors. The design language is there, transitions, motion, depth, everything to do with shapes. It's incredible. The guy who did the title sequence is actually the guy who heads the studio, Jorge Canedo Estrada. I hope I'm saying his name right. I keep butchering every single name I say. They do a lot of things, a lot of really, really cool things, but shapes has always been there because he freaking loves shapes. He basically started off with shapes and he continued loving shapes. And this is where I think in motion design, shapes sort of became a style and became a staple for the motion design sphere. Ravier is bringing it back, or Ravi. I'm still butchering fucking names. This is a studio run by Austin Bowens and Noah Wild. You can tell shapes are their thing, and they're capitalizing on shapes in motion, and now it's gaining popularity again. And there are a lot of examples of trends becoming styles. One of the other ones is paper stop motion, which is an extension of sort of stop motion, but with the punk aesthetics of cutting up magazines and newspapers. The earliest memory that I have of that is Battle Force. It's this. I remember watching this before, and it was so tactile and rough and raw and so real, you know, as if like there are real paper cutouts. The years go by and stop motion is still a sort of thing. Here's another project by Oddfellows again, and you can tell they're still using textures, still tactile sort of things, but it's a lot cleaner, kind of using graphic design principles in order to make it a little bit more clean and modern, so to speak. You can tell right here. And now, who better to do it than Ariel Costa, who is now the pioneer of doing paper cutout stop motion. It's a little small. All using cutouts of photos and stuff, and he's really doing some really dynamic motion using that. And I think it's super cool. He does a lot of characters as well. It's like characters, stop motion, everything. It is incredible. Really nice stuff. And I've talked a lot about 2D, but this also applies to 3D as well. Before the Microsoft era, there's this sort of 3D transformation style that was going around. My earliest memory of that is this ad for Oppo, and this was by Some. Some is now a household name now, but this is one of his earlier work. This is what made me fall in love with 3D motion design, because it's so cool and dynamic, and I've never really seen 3D done like this before. There's a lot of transitions and things, and it's really cool. That, for example, that's a really cool shot. Microsoft Icons was sort of an extension of that idea, and it was still playful and fun, and still transforms from shapes to icons. This is another one of their videos where they transform things into icons. And now there's this video by Sekani Solomon and Zachary Corzine. Shit. They created this video all full of crazy transformations, and it's insane what they could do nowadays. It's just a whole lot of transformations and things just playing around, and this now became a staple of motion design. So there are a lot more examples of this, but I just wanted to talk about trends. I feel like it's just an afterthought after doing the last video. The last video is a lot more critical of looking inward and instead looking outward and doing something different, but looking inward is okay as well. Just because it's a trend doesn't mean it's a bad thing. And if it looks good and it works, it's going to stay for a long ass time. And these trends prove that it works, and it turns into a style. It turns into a staple of the motion design industry. Yeah, that's basically it.
Can you please forgive all the jealousy I have? This time I'm finding peace in my sorrow that I keep. And all I have is silence in your absence and release. Hey.